Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood. And our very special guest today is Julie Leith with Durable Assistance. Did I say Leith? Is that Leith right?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
All right. So, you always think, man, I really need to get better at all that stuff. So, and super glad to have you today. And we're going to talk about something that seems to happen to a lot of our clients, that have been diagnosed with dementia. We're going to talk about staying home with dementia today. And so, and I think sometimes with dementia, it just kind of varies, does it? And with the type of dementia they have, of whether or not that works.
Yes. So dementia is an umbrella term for numerous kinds of cognitive impairment. When I think the most common people know is Alzheimer's, but there are many other ones. Cognitive impairment from maybe progressive Parkinson's disease or vascular dementia or Lewy body's disease, and they all act very differently for patients and families' experiences.
Yes, that is true. So, but is it possible to keep someone home when they've been diagnosed with dementia?
So, yes, I believe it's absolutely possible, and people do that. It's not always easy, but I think also long-term care placements aren't easy either. The reality is that dementia is a tough diagnosis for both patients and families and healthcare providers. I think it's the challenge that we're all trying to figure out together.
So, what are the pros of keeping someone at home rather than them being in a memory care facility?
So anytime someone goes into a long-term placement facility, nursing home, assisted living, memory care unit, it is never going to be one-on-one care. You're never going to have one-on-one care unless you're hiring a private caregiver to sit with that individual. And so with long-term care placement, that's very different than at home, where individuals will have usually one-on-one care, even if it's their family, and they know those people. They know, they're familiar. What we know about dementia in all aspects is that change in routine, change in environment can really cause a decline and continue to cause confusion. And so those are some pros. So by keeping someone at home, they're familiar with their surroundings, they're familiar with the people that are there, and they're getting one-on-one care and focus that they may not be able to get otherwise.
So what about the cons of keeping someone with dementia at home?
So I think
rather than putting them in a facility.
There's a book I like. I'm trying to remember the author, but it's called The 36-Hour Day, which is a book that really focuses on challenges for caregivers and families caring for someone with dementia. It is extremely difficult. And sometimes it may not be as difficult for the person that has dementia if they are confused and not aware that they have the diagnosis. But for families, things haven't changed for them. It's the loss of the dream of retirement, growing old together, traveling. All of those things really change when dementia comes into the picture. And so it can be really tough to watch that. I think also there are behaviors that sometimes come with different dementia diagnosis that are very difficult to deal with in the home. So the ones I think about where I have families right now struggling is a client where her husband was always the gentlest, sweetest person is now violent. And how do you cope with that and deal with that behavior? And I think the biggest safety as well, falls in the home, and also what we call elopement. People kind of laugh when I say that. They're like, what do you mean elopement? But literally, individual leaving the home, walking down the street, getting in a car and driving, and they have no idea. And the other con is that although those of us that don't have dementia, our life just kind of continues to go on, people with dementia can sometimes get stuck. They're stuck in a period of time, and we don't always have the patience to deal with that. And so that can be, it's really kind of an exhausting experience. And so it's a matter of, can family commit to what that person needs? Do they have the resources, both financially and emotionally, to be able to cope? My preference is that we always keep people at home. I know that it's not always a reality, but I think it's more of a reality than people realize. With the right resources, the right support, it can be done, and it can be done successfully.
And so you call them elopement, and we call them runners. And
there you go. Same thing. I mean, I actually had a very close friend. She moved her husband with dementia into assisted living facility. And he says, I'm going to go to dinner. I'm going to go downstairs to dinner. Yeah, he took the car and left, and was gone for 9 hours in the car. And those are real, and they were at an assisted living facility. So those are some real, it's scary for families, and scary for the person that has dementia, because it's not that they're doing it on purpose. They just don't have any idea, and they have cognitive impairment is so significant that they've lost that sense of space and time, and maybe making the best choices.
So we've talked to clients a lot about, how do you, when you've got those people, that have that particular, they're always trying to escape. And, all the different technology, all the different things. And I had a client that did all of that stuff, and their loved one still got out. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we don't know how. In our wildest dreams, we have no idea how this person got out. And, but they were letting them go in the backyard, like you could walk out the back door into the backyard, the gate was locked, everything was good. Kind of found out they were climbing the gate. Those little slats, on your wooden gates, climbing the gate, jumping over.
And it's so interesting because you have somebody that clearly has a cognitive impairment and confused, but they are very smart and clever. And they get into their mind, like, for whatever reason, I'm going to do this, and they will pull it off. And so, yeah, I think that's a big challenge. Like, even doing all of the modifications, people still will escape. And I think sometimes it comes down to literally having somebody up with them 24/7, which is financially costly, unless you can have volunteers, family do that. But even for family that love their loved ones, sometimes it's too much, and sometimes they've been dealing with it for a long time without any kind of support. And so a lot of times I hear from people after they are in crisis mode and they don't know what else to do. And so I think those are I think even in the best circumstances, doing every single thing, sometimes in reality, clients have to be in a locked memory unit for their safety and the sanity of everybody around them.
So what reasons do you recommend to help a dementia patient be able to stay in their home longer?
So one, I always want to start with a home safety assessment. And that's twofold. One, for just because we know most people that have dementia usually are 65 and older. There are some under that age. But we know that they are aging and falls are a huge risk. And so first I want to start with, is the home safe? And evaluate that and see if there are any modifications they need to do. The cheapest and the most common modification that I recommend is getting rid of the throw rug. For the love of the throw rug, people are so attached to their throw rugs. And so for people with dementia, it's even more of a risk because they may be losing visual and spatial awareness. So one, I want to start with the home, not looking at dementia first, but just looking at, is this, are there trip hazards, things like that are going to create more of a risk for someone to fall. And then I want to dementia proof the home. And I think that's a varying degree. But even something as simple as putting the childproof locks on the cabinets is very helpful. And that's a simple, cost-effective thing to do that can keep people safe. And as we know, dementia is a progressive diagnosis. So here's the other way to think about it. Maybe we can't keep every person in their home 100% of the time, but we may be able to keep them in their home longer than we were without those modifications. So one, I start with those. Then two, having realistic conversations with family about what it requires to keep their loved one in the home and safe. And three, I want to look at what are all of the options if that is not a possibility. Or at some point it becomes not a possibility. It may be that they can stay in their home for 15 years, even with the diagnosis, even if they ultimately have to go into a memory care unit.
I had a client come in and we talked about the rug had to go. It was a beautiful Persian rug. The rug had to go. And she's like, there's no way I'm going to get it out of the house. Mom is attached to this rug. This is her pride and joy. And I said, but it needs to be cleaned, right? So you tell her it needs to be cleaned. We got to roll it up and take it to the cleaners. To clean it. We don't want to have this beautiful rug, something happened to it because it's not, can't stay clean. So they were able to roll it up, stick it in the garage, wrap it, put it in the garage and get it out of the way so mom couldn't see it. And so sometimes, I tell clients all the time, sometimes those little white lies, you got to do it. You just have to do what you need to do.
Yeah, and there's no reason to argue with them. I mean, there's no winning that. So I think that's a great example because it's really redirecting. And there's a lot of strategies around that. The Alzheimer's Association also has checklist on making your home safe for somebody that has dementia. And I mean, you're right. You could do all of those things and it's still, you just never know what the brain's going to do with patients with dementia. But there are a lot of steps I think that people don't think about, like the rug.
Yeah. And so we tell people, try not to move the furniture differently, but do things to make sure that, bigger walkways, maybe separate it out just a little bit so that they, are not dodging furniture. Sometimes it's just little things that seem to help. And so let's talk about you. Let's talk about durable assistance for a minute. And so tell us, Julie, what kind of things do y'all do to help a family, keep someone, with dementia at home longer?
So I launched Durable Assistance and Consulting in October after brand new business, but I came to it with 25 years working as a social worker, kind of in the spectrum, but my focus has always been aging populations. And so I knew there had to be a better way for people to age in their home. And dementia is a big focus of that because it affects so many people in the country. And so we provide consulting services to help families navigate really difficult healthcare systems, how to get the care they need. And we try to do that in a cost-effective way so that people can stay at home. My goal always is to keep people in their home. I mean, I don't want my family to be in a long-term care facility. I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody says, oh, this is the first choice. They just don't know how to get there. And what I try to do is I will provide services as simple as providing resources and referrals so that families can take control and put those services in place. Or I will do some of that advocacy, interviewing of providers, say they need an elder law attorney, or if they need a home care health agency, I can help them find that. We have an interesting method that we launched that I can do home safety assessments, and I can do one room or the entire house. I can do it in person or virtually. And so we're able to look at your house and say, hey, these are the big problems that we need to fix right now. And this is what you might consider along the way. And so that's where we're at. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to fit definitely a need in our community. As this population of seniors is just exploding all over the country. I think it's supposed to be the largest, it's the fastest and largest growing population, people 65 and older.
That it is. And so if you look at the numbers of the people that, hit 65 every day, it's astronomical. So yeah, most definitely. So Julie, how does somebody find you?
Okay, the best way to find us, there are 3 ways. First is email, which is info@durableassistance.com. My phone number is 281-387-5413, or you can locate us on our website, which is durableassistance.com.
Perfect. And so all good information, and so glad to have the show today. And I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.